Good to have you with us as we all stay at home to stay safe. That includes Chet Hesson. He is with Student Services and Student Athlete Services. And of course, all the students at BGSU, not just the athletes, are practicing distance learning. Chet, specifically, how are we working with the athletes to try and, get them into this distance learning and help them feel comfortable and keep up with that schoolwork?
Yeah, well, thanks for the time, Todd. A couple things to start with. I think, in this very unique and challenging time, it's been helpful for us to have tools in 2020 like Microsoft Teams, which is what we're on the call with this morning, and do video conferencing with all of our student athletes. So traditionally, we have study tables throughout the week. We have one-on-one advising appointments with myself or members of my staff and student athlete services, and having the ability to do video conferencing has really been extremely helpful for us. Without that tool, just phone calls or text messaging would have been very, very complicated. But silver lining is, I think, when we come out of this, both our student athletes, our coaches, and our staff will be more versed in all the technologies that exist today that help us stay connected even when we're working remotely.
Chet, some folks might be interested to know how much online and distance learning was BGSU doing before all this happened. I know this has been integrated slowly into everyday life in many facets. What about with BGSU, not just with the athletes, but all the students with online learning? How much had been going on?
Yeah, with our population specifically, I would say on average, each student athlete has one of their 5 online or classes online. I think that helps with the ability to manage travel schedules, work around practice conflicts as well. And so, there was some familiarity with most of our student athletes already with online learning environments. So the transition, while definitely not easy, I think our students are very tech savvy. They grew up with this technology as opposed to maybe some adult learners that it's a lot newer and fresher. And, we have to re-innovate ourselves, where student athletes or students in general that are growing up in the technology age, they're equipped to manage this transition. I think the biggest transition has been for the faculty, where now faculty are being inundated with emails and online learning environments, and they were thrust into this halfway through the semester. And so, their curriculum and their course schedule that they had planned has had to be completely revamped and updated. And they just basically had our spring break to get it up online and running. And then the other side of that is, there are a lot of students that still in today's day and age don't have access to technology that's needed to do really well online. Whether that be access to reliable internet or a reliable computer. We had a couple of student athletes that I was chatting with at the end of last week that live out on the East Coast, and we had a really bad storm that rolled through the United States last week, and they were without power for 2 or 3 days, and they weren't local, so their faculty members weren't obviously really thinking about how the power outages on the East Coast could have impacted their learning, so they were unable to really send any messaging or communication that they were going to miss exams or needed additional time. So just working through some of those transitions. And then we have a lot of international students as well, that if faculty are running synchronous courses where the classes, you have to be logged in at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time in order to take an exam. Well, if I live in Israel or if I live in Japan and I have to get up, that time difference is going to be quite challenging. So, the provosts onto the deans down to the program coordinators have delivered messaging to the faculty to try to create classes that are asynchronous, and that regardless of what time zone you're in or where you're at, you could log in and complete an exam.
Man, I have enough trouble showing up on time in my own time zone. I feel bad for those students. Hey, Chet, one more thing. We talk about peer pressure in a negative way sometimes, but in the classroom, it can be a positive, just like on a team where, your teammate helps you out. How are we encouraging students and student athletes to stay in contact with their teammates and their classmates?
Yeah, so a lot of coaches, and we've been working with them pretty handedly to create meeting spaces for them, such as this with Microsoft Teams. We have spaces that we've designed using Zoom and other online technology to help cultivate those relationships and make sure that they're staying strong. There's also some tools that the university has set up, one of which is called Study Buddies, which is essentially this app that you can log in and find people that are in your classes, even if they're not in your actual section, and wind up connecting with them virtually to study for an exam or a test or just review material. So there's a lot of outlets for students that if they're looking for that type of interaction, that we're creating it for them.
Chet, appreciate you taking a few minutes here. Keep up the good work with the student services. And as always, I Ziggy.
Ziggy. See you soon.